What's going on, creators? I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about creative detachment and how you can start to use detachment to start to take things off pedestals, be able to manifest more and more things without resistance, being able to apply a lot of these things to different areas of your life. Enjoying the present moment more. It's really a transferable thing. And so when it comes to detachment, a lot of times I get this, especially where like the ego in me wants to go, oh, detachment just means becoming numb to things, not giving a fuck about anything, just being blah. And that's not what I mean by detachment. And so if that's part of your narratives when it comes to detachment, we can start to revise how we're thinking about that, for one. What I mean by creative detachment is being able to do an activity or whatever without having all the narratives and the dramas and the stories behind it, putting things on pedestals. Guitar is a really excellent example of that. But how you do one thing is how you can do everything. And when it comes to like creative detachment for like creating music, it's maybe easier to convey that. And so it's basically about being able to take an inner vision, execute it, and demonstrate it in outer reality for others to perceive and experience, and being able to match that inner vision with what you're able to demonstrate perfectly. And so when it comes to producing music, creating music, just playing the instrument, for example, a lot of times we can become like you produce like a track, for example, and when you first start producing, you might really be like attached to the music that you're creating, like it's your baby, it's my creation, how dare you criticize it or whatever. But in the process of producing, creating music, learning an instrument, producing music is a really good example, because it's like you're just listening to things on a loop over and over again, repetition, and you hear it. And creative detachment is being able to hear it when it sounds like shit, not be like start telling yourself a story about how you're a terrible producer, how you're not able to do it. Oh, if I only had the right VSTs, and if I only had the right studio equipment, if I only had the right microphone, whatever the narrative is that's like causing this resistance, this block. Creative detachment allows you to hear it for what it is, and then not become like creating a story about it, how you like suck as a producer or whatever you're doing, but then be able to start modifying what's present in whatever you're doing, and start to mold and shape it to a more desirable thing that matches your inner vision. And so when it comes to like weight loss, for example, that's another great example where it's like you can look at the mirror of reality and see what you've already manifested when it comes to your body, and whatever that is. I'm not, oh Mike, are you fat shaming people? It's like there becomes a tipping point, and I've experienced it, where you go from like being comfortable in your skin to now all of a sudden you caught like a picture of yourself and it's like, that doesn't reflect who I am. Once you cross that barrier, and now it's like turning into like a negative self story where you're like, oh, now I'm so ugly, now I'm this, now I'm that. All of those things are not reflective of who you are in Christ. That's when it becomes the issue. It's more about when it shifts from like, oh, I'm consciously creating what I would like to demonstrate, or I'm unconsciously creating things that aren't desirable. And so creative detachment allows you to look at what's being brought to you in the present moment, whether that's music, whether that's your finances, whether it's relationship. It's all one thing. And so it's like you take a big inventory of what's going on, and by becoming detached from it, you're more so not getting into, oh, I'm numb to it, I want to just not feel nothing, whatever's fine. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's in chaos or dysfunction. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about, oh, okay, well, I'm being presented with an opportunity to evolve this, and so I'm going to plant those seeds now. What's the next logical step? Is there something I can do? Like in producing music, it's like, oh, I don't really like the bass sound. It sounds really muddy and it fucking just doesn't sound good. Is there anything I can do? Next logical step, is the bass instrument itself good? If it's good, then it's like, well, the next logical step is like, how can I hone that sound better? Well, maybe with an EQ, I can make it, match the inner vision where I want it to sound a particular way. This inner vision, I want to demonstrate that outside of myself. And, through this creative detachment process, I'm able to, be presented with it. Do I like it? Does it resonate? No. What's the next logical step? Okay, well, I can EQ it. I can lower some of the high end frequencies that might be conflicting with other instruments. Might bring up the low end cuts, so it's not just creating low end frequencies that my speakers can't even duplicate the sound. It just rumbles the subwoofers. So it's like, okay, well, now I can move this over here, and through the detachment, where you're able to just look at it objectively, of like without the mental stories, without the judgments. That's kind of more of the flow I'm talking about, where you're able to look at what is being presented in creation, whatever you're trying to create or demonstrate, not with like judgment, not with like, oh, these big attachments where it's like, oh, if I just create this music perfectly, then the outer world will love me. Whenever you're trying to manipulate the outer to get an inner, that you're doing it backwards. And so change in what you're actually trying to do, the intent behind what you're doing. If you're staying in the intent is to create maybe heaven for other people through this creative means, okay, there's no resistance with that. There's no stuff that you're attached to, where it comes to, I need the outer to change so I feel a certain way. Well, that's screaming I'm attached to it. When you come out of that kind of mode and you're able to take a step back, maybe in playing an instrument, I'm playing these scales and it's like I'm just really fucking this part of it up. It doesn't sound good. I'm hitting other strings. Well, you can have this attachment to how you're playing, like, well, if I just play like Steve Vai or Jimi Hendrix or fill in the blank, then people will worship me like a god, and I'll get all this money and blowjobs and whatever you're trying to do or whatever. But in that, then you're creating all this drama, these scenarios, this mental projection of the future. You're not creating through detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you don't love it. Detachment actually means that you do love it. You're able to objectively look at it and make it as perfect as possible, because the inner vision of how this sound that's coming from like infinite intelligence in a lot of different ways, how well you can channel that imagining and bring it to reality is all in how you're able to do that without your ego invested in it. And so part of creative detachment is not having your ego willpower, your ego identity, muddling up the manifestation. And by manifestation, I'm just talking this bringing an inner vision, an inner imagining into reality. You have that through maybe fitness, this inner vision of how you desire to look, bringing that into reality. Music, this inner vision of how you want to be able to play your instrument and how you can demonstrate that in reality. That's all I'm talking about. And so being able to be more detached from the process, being able to start to get into the process and be like, okay, well, that sounds like shit. That's not really making a judgment if you're creatively detached from it. That's not making a statement about your identity. It's just, okay, well, I'm not done with it yet. It's still a process. So in creative detachment, you're starting to learn how to work this process, the creative process, the manifestation process, without fear, anxiety, envy, all these kinds of things that can start to happen when you start getting your ego identity involved in the creative process, which is attached to the outcomes. It's attached to all of these things, which then actually hampers your ability to then create. But as you're becoming more like detached from it, knowing that these seeds that you plant will bloom into a manifestation. For example, I hit the gym for an hour today working out a specific area. I don't have to sit here and watch it. I don't have to be attached to how it's going to happen. I just know through my faith, my intent, that doing these things will have a renewing process as I'm doing it, and God will then manifest it as a reward for the action, the faith, the doing, all that kind of stuff. It all goes hand in hand. It's like, I feel like a big mistake in the manifesting crowd, the law of attraction, maybe even it's like the law of assumption, not so much like the law of assumption, because you're making the future now, so you're actually embodying these things. But one of the things that can start to happen is that you get so tied up in this future state that you're not stewarding what's already manifested, which is an exact reflection of your consciousness. And so to be able to demonstrate this inner vision outside of yourself, you have to accept where you're at not sitting there in judgment. Oh, I should feel shame because I'm not here, it's not talking about that. It's okay. I accept what's here. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree that bass sounds like shit, and that's just what it is. No, that's where you start to shape it and mold it. And so it makes it easier to start shaping and molding maybe your body, your instrument, any of these things. It's all one thing. Your relationships, you can look at it objectively through detachment, not saying that you're numb to it or you don't give a fuck about the other person or how it sounds or not. It's not what detachment is. Detachment is not having your ego invested in it. It's that same thing in being mindful, where you can observe the thoughts, and as you become more skilled through repetition of observing the thoughts, you actually start to become one with the subconscious that's just present and still always in that field of awareness. Whereas then, there's thought that comes in, but you aren't the thought. You're the observer of the thought. You're in the observer role. You're watching it. That's more of the detachment I'm talking about. So you can watch it, you can feel it, but you're not one with it. You're able to shape it and mold it, let it go, grow it, all of these kinds of things in a loving way, where it's like I'm not mad at the guitar for doing what the guitar does. I'm not mad at myself at my current skill level. I still have this long-term vision of being able to execute that inner thing perfectly into outer reality. But the best way I found is through kind of this detachment, where you're able to observe it, go, oh, that sounds in disharmony, objective, what's being presented in creation. Okay, that's disharmonious. It's not a judgment. That's being part of creatively detached, which is a fine line, really, because it's just through repetition you're able to do it more and more so, where it's like, oh, I could be playing something on my guitar. I could be thinking, this is really starting to, those notes are coming out more clear. I get it all the time in the recording environment, because what you're playing versus when you hear it back, it's two different worlds. It's just really strange, because it's like you could feel like you nailed it on the actual live recording part of it, but then when you put your producer hat on and you're kind of like mixing it, which is a good exercise in creative detachment, where you're not really focused on one particular area, you're listening to the entirety of it. Well, then it's like, oh, well, I thought that sounded good, but now I'm listening to the entirety of it, and it's clashing. There's stuff that's obviously in disharmony. There's things that are maybe out of tune. There's weird frequency things going on. But the detachment end of it is more about where you're not saying, oh man, I just suck at this. I'll never be able to record it okay. I'm always going to be just curses, telling yourself these negative beliefs. It has to do more with being able to then evolve it, progress, get better. And in that process, there's fun, there's enjoyment that starts to happen. Same thing like skateboarding. It's like you have this idea, maybe you see somebody do like a kickflip down maybe a set of 5 stairs, not something crazy, but something like, okay, this is something, this is an event to do. and it's like, okay, well, you can start, going for it and trying to bring that reality to others, to the physical. I mean, you have it in your mind. It's like, I think I can do this. It's like, okay, then prove it, do it. If you think you can, then demonstrate it. Okay, well, if you're really attached to landing it, or if it's like your identity is tied with it, it's like, oh, I'm going to be an excellent person if I just land this kickflip down this set of stairs. Well, a lot of times then there's like fear of like, well, what if you don't do it then? What if you hurt yourself? What if this happens? What if that? And then you start getting conflicted. I feel like that. Whenever I'm saying you're doing this, it's like, this shit I've done. I'm just speaking from experience in a lot of different ways, where it's just like, I don't know what's going on within you. I only know what's going on within me, but we're all connected. So, I think there's some transferable things. And when it comes to like creative detachment, it's more about, it's not being numb to your feelings. It's not being numb, which is part of what the ego likes to dangle in front of you, of like, well, this is what it is. It's like either you're suffering or you're numb. That's it. There's the joys and shit that's too fleeting. It's either you got to suffer and grind, fear, reactivity. Look at that other person. Let's tear them down to our level. That kind of drama. Well, that's not detachment. that's the opposite. That's actually being very attached to it. It's like you hear that too when it comes with people with their body. Is like, oh, it's just the meat suit that I'm going to take off because I'm so detached from it. It's like, are you though? I mean, it's like your body is the temple of God according to the Bible. So it's like, is it some just meat suit, or is that just your negative beliefs about it? It's just like, well, Mike, that's what being non-attached is. I just could step out of this body at any moment. It's like, okay, well, whatever. It's like, but when it comes to how I'm trying to convey this message, it's more about being able to look at what is without judging and condemning it, going, okay, well, this is really undesirable. This sounds like shit, but that's where it stops. We're going to then evolve this going from here forward. What's the next logical step? What's the next thing I can do to make it match the vision that I have inside that says that this is good? Because ultimately that's who judges things. It's like, you create something and go, oh, well, this is bad. Well, if you're starting to become more in harmony with your creator, that, just look at the Bible. God created creation and, all these days or whatever. It's only ever now. So, but the thing of it is like God creates something. Well, then God decides whether it's good. God said it's good that there's light and there's this, there's that, there's people. It's good that we are in relationship. It's not good for us to be alone. It's all these kinds of things. It's like, and where does God live according to the Bible? Within. And so the part of like connecting with like being able to go, oh, this is good, this resonates, is part of your connection with infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, infinite all of that. It's all about how you're able to connect with that versus connecting with this cursed ego identity mind that thinks God's separate and outside of you, and that you're a separate brain and a body. Again, that goes back to well, I'm just so detached from my body that, that's not even my identity. Well, it's not your identity, because your identity is one with God and consciousness, but your body is reflecting that relationship. Basically, like as Joe Dispenza would say, Dr. Joe Dispenza, your body is a reflection of your subconscious beliefs about your body, because you have a body in your sleeping world too. I mean, you always have this form that you can either evolve consciously or just let it go to shit unconsciously. It's the same type of thing, but you get there through creative detachment, in my opinion at least, being able to look at it and be like, oh, there's a tummy there, all that kind of stuff. But I think I'm about. So, I just want to bring that to you guys. Thanks for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting. If you have questions, comments, maybe something going on with you, put a link or put a comment in the comment section. I'll get to it. And with that being said, I appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. Thank you for that. Until the next now, God bless.